Have you ever wondered why some people making $99,000 feel completely broke, but the moment they hit $100,001, they suddenly start thinking like millionaires? Why your coworker making $95K is still living paycheck to paycheck, stressed about every expense, while your other friend who just crossed six figures is talking about buying rental properties and starting businesses. Here's what's messing with your head right now. There's a specific psychological switch that flips in your brain the moment you earn your first $100,000. Neuroscientists call it wealth cognition shift, and it literally rewires how you think about money, opportunity, and what's possible for your life. Most Americans work 30+ years without ever experiencing this mental breakthrough. They stay trapped in scarcity thinking, making financial decisions based on fear instead of opportunity, never understanding why they feel broke no matter how much they earn. Today I'm exposing the exact psychology behind this 100K threshold, why it changes everything about how wealthy people think, and why missing this breakthrough keeps millions of hardworking Americans financially stuck forever. Comment, breakthrough, if you've never made six figures, but you're tired of feeling broke, because what I'm about to reveal will completely transform your relationship with money. But first, let me show you the poverty prison that's keeping your mind broke. 1. The poverty prison. Why your brain keeps you broke. Below 100K. Let me tell you about two guys I know who make almost the exact same money, but live in completely different financial realities. It's gonna blow your mind how much psychology plays into wealth. Mike makes $87,000 as a marketing manager. Sounds pretty good, right? But Mike's brain is wired for scarcity. Every month, he gets his paycheck and immediately starts calculating. Rent is $2,200, car payment is $650, groceries around $400, utilities, insurance, student loans. By the time he's done with his mental math, he feels broke before he's even spent a dime. When his friends invite him to dinner, his first thought is, can I afford this? When he sees a business opportunity or investment, he thinks, I don't have money for that. Mike's making good money, but his mind is trapped in survival mode. Now meet David. He makes $92,000 doing similar work, just $5,000 more than Mike. But here's what's fascinating. David thinks completely differently about money. When he gets his paycheck, instead of calculating what he can't afford, he asks, how can I make this money work harder for me? When his friends suggest the same dinner, David thinks, how can I use this networking opportunity? When he sees an investment opportunity, he doesn't think, I can't afford it. He thinks, how can I afford it? The difference isn't the money, it's the mindset. And this is where it gets really interesting from a psychological standpoint. Ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle wrote about something he called the poverty of abundance, how your mind can remain poor even when surrounded by wealth. Modern neuroscientists have proven he was right. Your brain has something called a financial set point, a comfort zone where it thinks you belong financially. For most Americans, that set point is locked somewhere between $40,000 and $85,000. Here's what happens when you're trapped below this psychological breakthrough. Your brain operates in what psychologists call scarcity mode. Every financial decision gets filtered through fear. You buy the cheaper option, even when the expensive one would save money long term. You avoid investing because you might lose money. You don't ask for raises because you're grateful to have a job. You live defensively instead of offensively. But there's something almost magical about the 100K threshold. It's not just a number, it's a psychological barrier that represents making it in American culture. Think about it. When someone says they make six figures, what's your immediate reaction? You respect them differently. You think they must be successful, smart, and financially stable. And more importantly, when someone crosses that threshold themselves, they start thinking about money the same way. The crazy part is, Your brain doesn't distinguish between $99,000 and $101,000 mathematically. It's only a $2,000 difference. But psychologically, it's the difference between feeling like you're struggling and feeling like you're succeeding. One puts you in the barely getting by category in your own mind, while the other puts you in the financially successful category. Mike, making $87, still checks his bank account before buying coffee. He agonizes over spending $200 on something he wants. He thinks wealthy people are just lucky or had advantages he didn't have. His scarcity mindset keeps him trapped in consumer thinking, how to spend his money, instead of investor thinking, how to multiply his money. This is what I call the poverty prison. Your income might be decent, but your mind is locked in financial survival mode. You make decisions based on fear of loss rather than opportunity for gain. You think about money in terms of what you can't afford rather than what's possible. The cruel irony? This mindset keeps you from the very behaviors that would push you over the 100K threshold and unlock that psychological breakthrough. But here's what I discovered that's going to change everything for you. There's a specific moment when this prison door swings wide open and your entire relationship with money transforms overnight. 2. The 100K psychological breakthrough. What actually changes in your brain? I'll never forget the day my friend Sarah called me, almost in tears, but not sad tears. Excited, overwhelmed tears. She'd just gotten a promotion that pushed her salary from $89,000 to $105,000. But what she said next is what really got my attention. I feel like a completely different person. It's like someone flipped a switch in my brain. At first, I thought she was just excited about the extra money. But over the next 6 months, I watched Sarah transform in ways that had nothing to do with her bank account balance. See, Sarah had been stuck in what I now recognize as the scarcity trap for years. Making decent money, but always feeling behind. Always saying things like, I can't afford that, or maybe someday when I have more money. But something incredible happened the moment she crossed into 6 figures. The first change was her language. Instead of, I can't afford it, she started saying, how can I afford it? When she wanted a $2,000 laptop for her side business, instead of dismissing it as too expensive, she figured out a payment plan and bought it because she understood it was an investment in her earning potential. The second shift was even more dramatic. Her relationship with risk completely changed. Before crossing 100K, Sarah kept her money in a savings account, earning 0.5% because investing felt too risky. But within 3 months of her promotion, she opened a brokerage account and started buying index funds. Same person, same basic financial situation, but completely different risk tolerance. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, wrote something profound about this kind of mental transformation. The universe is change, life is opinion. Sarah's financial universe hadn't changed that dramatically. We're talking about an extra $16,000 per year, or about $1,300 per month. But her opinion about what was possible for her life had shifted completely. Modern neuroscience explains exactly what happened in Sarah's brain. Dr. Martin Seligman's research at the University of Pennsylvania shows that our brains have something called learned optimism versus learned helplessness. When you're stuck below 6 figures, especially for years, your brain develops learned helplessness around money. You start believing that financial struggle is just your reality. But crossing $100 triggers what neuroscientists call a cognitive restructuring event. Your brain literally rewires its neural pathways around money and possibility. You shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset about wealth. The 100K threshold acts like psychological proof that you can earn significant money, which opens up entirely new mental models about what else might be possible. The third change I noticed in Sarah was her peer group. Before, she hung out with people who complained about money, talked about how expensive everything was, and shared articles about how impossible it is to get ahead in America. But after crossing six figures, she naturally started gravitating toward people who talked about investments, business opportunities, and side hustles. It wasn't intentional, it was magnetic. Success attracts success because successful people's conversations are fundamentally different. The fourth shift was her time horizon. Before 100K, Sarah thought in terms of next month's bills and maybe next year's vacation. After crossing the threshold, she started thinking in decades. She opened a Roth IRA, started researching real estate markets, and made a 10-year financial plan. The same brain that used to worry about making it to payday was now calculating compound interest over 20-year periods. Here's what really fascinated me. Sarah didn't become a different person. She became who she always was, but with the psychological constraints removed. The scarcity mindset that had been suppressing her natural ambition and intelligence finally lifted. Warren Buffett talks about this psychological shift in his early career. He said the hardest part of building wealth wasn't learning about investing. It was believing he deserved to be wealthy in the first place. That belief shift typically happens somewhere around the six-figure mark for most Americans. But here's where this breakthrough becomes really powerful, and this is what's going to blow your mind about the math behind wealth building. 3. The compound acceleration. Why 100K becomes $1 million faster than expected. Let me tell you about my neighbor Tom's financial journey, because it perfectly illustrates something that sounds impossible but happens all the time. Tom spent 12 long grinding years, going from $45,000 to his first $100,000. He was disciplined, worked overtime, got promoted slowly, and saved every extra dollar. It was a marathon of financial discipline that honestly looked pretty miserable from the outside. But here's where the story gets wild. It took Tom only 4 more years to go from $100,000 to $500,000 in net worth. Same guy, same work ethic, but suddenly his wealth was accelerating like a rocket ship. When I asked him what changed, he laughed and said, "Everything and nothing. I'm doing the same things, but now they actually work." See, what Tom discovered, and what most people never realize, is that wealth building has 2 completely different phases. Phase 1 is climbing the mountain to 100K, which is brutal, slow, and requires massive discipline with very little to show for it. Phase 2 is everything after 100K, where compound growth, confidence, and opportunity create an entirely different game. Einstein supposedly called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world. And he was right, but not in the way most people think. It's not just about money compounding, it's about everything compounding. Your confidence compounds, your network compounds, your opportunities compound, and yes, your money compounds too. Here's what happened to Tom after crossing 6 figures. First, his investment behavior completely changed. Before 100K, he was terrified of losing money, so he kept everything in savings accounts. But once he hit 6 figures, he started thinking like someone who had money to invest. He put $50,000 into index funds, bought his first rental property with a $20,000 down payment, and started a side consulting business with $5,000 in startup costs. The psychological shift was everything. When you have $30,000 in the bank, losing $5,000 on a bad investment feels devastating. That's 17% of your net worth gone. But when you have $120,000, losing $5,000 is annoying but not life-changing. This risk tolerance difference is what separates people who stay middle class from people who build real wealth. Warren Buffett's wealth timeline proves this acceleration effect perfectly. It took him 25 years to reach his first $1 million. But then he went from $1 million to $10 million in just 7 years. From $10 million to $100 million in another 8 years. Same person, same investment strategy. But the compound effect creates exponential growth curves. Tom's network effect kicked in too. Once he was making 6 figures, he started hanging around other 6-figure earners. These people shared different information: which neighborhoods were appreciating, which stocks their financial advisors recommended, and which business opportunities they were exploring. When you're making 60K, your coworkers talk about where to find cheap gas. When you're making 120K, your coworkers talk about tax strategies and investment opportunities. The rental property Tom bought for $180,000 appreciated to $240,000 in 3 years while generating $1,800 monthly cash flow. His index fund investments rode the market up 35% over 4 years. His consulting side business grew from $500 monthly to $3,000 monthly as his confidence grew and his reputation spread through his new network. But here's the most important part. Tom's mindset had fundamentally shifted from scarcity to abundance. Instead of asking, "Can I afford this?" he started asking, "Will this make me money?" Instead of seeing expenses, he started seeing investments. Instead of avoiding risk, he started calculating risk-reward ratios. The cruel irony is that the financial behaviors that create wealth, investing in appreciating assets, taking calculated risks, thinking long-term, are almost impossible to maintain when you're trapped in scarcity thinking. But once you cross that 100K psychological threshold, these behaviors become natural, even obvious. Tom's story isn't unique. The pattern repeats everywhere. The first 100K takes forever and feels impossible. But after that, wealth builds exponentially because your psychology, your network, your opportunities, and your compound returns all start working together instead of against each other. And that brings me to the question that's probably burning in your mind right now. How do you actually break through that 100K barrier and trigger this psychological transformation in your own life? There you have it, the psychological breakthrough that separates those who build real wealth from those who stay financially stuck forever. It's not about the money itself. It's about what happens in your brain when you cross that 100K threshold. Remember Mike, trapped in scarcity thinking at 87K? Sarah, who transformed overnight after hitting 6 figures? Tom, who took 12 years to reach 100K, but only 4 more years to multiply it by 5? They're not different people. They just experience the psychological shift that changes everything. The brutal truth is this. Your first 100K isn't just about proving you can earn money. It's about proving to yourself that financial freedom is actually possible. Once your brain accepts that you're capable of generating significant wealth, every door opens. Your risk tolerance changes, your network upgrades, your opportunities multiply, and your money starts compounding exponentially. Start tracking toward your first 6 figures with specific monthly milestones. Celebrate every $10 increase because each one rewires your brain for abundance instead of scarcity. Comment money mindset if you're ready to break through the psychological barriers keeping you below 6 figures. Share this with someone who's tired of feeling broke despite earning decent money. Should I reveal the exact 3-step strategy I used to go from $100 to $500 in just 3 years? The specific psychology hacks that accelerate this process? Because your first 100K isn't the finish line. It's where your real financial life finally begins.